Part 9. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 81. Chapter 81. What kind of plane are you doing? I'm injured and you won't let me go. Lee Baiken really didn't know what to say now. He wanted to stand up from the wheelchair. No, he shouldn't be in a wheelchair at all. At once he was ready to stand up. But the moment he just stood up, he heard. But it's really strange, why did I not notice that this guy was injured when he was in front of me for so long? I understand. The second male lead deserves to be the second male lead. He is so tolerant. No, it should be the injuries caused by the heroine. They are not injuries. That is proof of her love for him. This really made Lee Baiken heartbroken. He was worried about what would happen to this woman before, so he didn't care about his own injuries. Now that he heard this woman thinking about him like this, he really regretted it. He was worried in vain and shouldn't worry about this. A heartless woman. Baiken, since you are injured, you should have a good rest. I will definitely take good care of you. After saying this, Sunian deliberately coughed a few times. This guy won't need me to take care of him like last time. This guy won't be such a beast. At this moment, Josu walked in and said to Sunian very respectfully, Mr. Lee, young lady, the master said that since you two are injured, we just need to rest in the same ward, so that we can take care of you conveniently. Two people. Sunian. Sunian's smile fell a little. What kind of plane are you doing? Why don't you let me go if I'm injured? Is it because I am a female supporting role that I have no human rights? God really went too far. Listening to this crazy voice, Lee Baiken felt inexplicably better. He looked at the woman next to him casually. What's wrong? Why do you look like this? I'm a little unwilling. If you don't want to, then you can give me, the old man said. After all, the old man loves you so much. These words reminded Sunian. Yes, 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 I can say it in a wronged way, then the old man will definitely feel that I have been wronged in some way, so that I can get rid of this licking dog. But I'm sorry, there is no way Lee Baiken would give Sunian this chance. So Lee Baiken said before Sunian could speak, I think it's very convenient for us to be together. I don't have any objections. Everything is up to you. Sunian almost choked to death. Sunian looked at Lee Baiken. Did the heroine Lanmin really step on this guy's feet? Why do I feel that this guy's pituitary gland was stepped on, and his pituitary gland was directly damaged? No matter how angry Sunian is in her heart, she must smile on the outside and say, this is something I really want. How can I have any objections? I feel like I will wake up laughing in my dreams tonight. Lee Baiken suddenly felt that he was a good choice here. Then please pay attention. After waking up from a dream at night, your voice should be a little lower, so as not to disturb my rest. Sunian. This licking dog deserves to have his feet trampled by the heroine. No, why didn't he get trampled to death by the heroine? It's strange that he can catch up with the heroine if he can't speak like that. Then Josu immediately arranged the layout of the ward. Another bed was added to the ward, as well as the office facilities that Lee Baiken was used to, and even a dressing table was moved for her. It didn't look like a ward at all. Sunian watched from the side and sighed again. If you have money, you can really do whatever you want. Even when I stayed in the hospital for several days, I kept up such a big show. No wonder, everyone wants to be rich. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 82. Chapter 82. You should find a spiritual expert. At night. Sunian couldn't laugh anymore. Because the injury was on her back, she was uncomfortable lying down. My back feels like burning pain. She buried herself in the quilt and held the quilt tightly. Oh, 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 it really hurts me to death. If it weren't for Mo, then even if that licking dog Lee Baiken died in front of me, I wouldn't do anything. But, 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 this guy can't die. I'm not pregnant with Mo yet. If he dies, then where will I go to find seeds? Think about Mo, think about him, all these pains are nothing. Sunian's mind reappeared, as if he was just born in his previous life. Yes, you should think like this, after all, if this guy Lee Baiken dies, then how can I give birth to Mo? If it weren't for Mo, how could I have been injured by this short and thin guy? It's really a shame. Lee Baiken, who was taking a nap, couldn't help but look at the bed next to him when he heard this. Although the environment of the ward is a bit dark, but he could still see clearly that the woman's body was trembling slightly. Sunian, he couldn't help but call out. When he received no response, he immediately lifted the quilt and got out of bed. When I walked to Sunian's bed, I saw clearly that the woman was curled up into a ball, and there was a little sweat on her forehead. This reminded Lee Baiken of what the doctor said. Young lady, although there is no danger to her life, the falling debris caused a serious injury to her back, and she may suffer a little bit. He frowned and wanted to say something. But when she heard it in her mind, she was thinking about their future child. There were some things he really couldn't say. As long as Mo is born, everything will be fine. Yes, everything will be fine. Lee Baiken looked at the woman. Actually, he hasn't really thought about the child. Does he really want to give birth to the child according to the original plot? Can children born to loveless couples really be happy? Author, don't worry, you will beg your father to be more valuable than your son. Lee Baiken stood for a long time, and finally chose to sit beside Sunian's bed, reaching out and gently touching Sunian's head. Sunian seemed to be really comforted by his behavior, and his body couldn't help but relax a little. Lee Baiken felt the changes in Sunian's body, and his movements became lighter. Just like that, the night passed. The next morning, Sunian was woken up by the sound of the ward door opening. After she woke up, she did not move immediately, and her eyes were confused. What's going on? How do I feel? Someone touched me like a dog last night. Lee Baiken, who was coming out of the bathroom, heard this. Then he looked at Shai Junian's bed. I saw Sunian touching his head with his hand, as if he was looking for a feeling. It's just me and the licking dog in this room. Isn't that guy so perverted? He got up in the middle of the night and petted me like a dog. Well, it's really possible. However, even if I were a dog, there would be no cuter dog than me in this world. Lee Baiken looked at Sunian and rubbed himself on the pillow. Just like the woman curled up in a ball last night, the poor woman was not her. Lee Baiken felt that he shouldn't have been so anxious to tell Josu to find an expert for consultation just now. He should wait for a while. If he waited until now and saw this woman like this, he could ask Josu to find some experts for consultation. Psychiatric experts, come and give this woman a good look. Thank you all for your votes. Please continue to vote, because today I have started to test the water recommendations again. This is the last chance to pass the level. Please. I really don't want to be asked to finish. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 83. Chapter 83, Insulting and Strong. Sunian sat up and was startled by the person standing next to the bed. I'm going to die, there is no voice to stand here, scaring my soul. Good morning, Baiken, I didn't expect to be able to see you even when I opened my eyes. I think I can be in a good mood all day today. Sunian immediately put on a smile. You opened your eyes 10 minutes ago, so you didn't open your eyes and saw me. Sunian's smile was a bit guarded. Ah, what does it mean to lick a dog? It's so literal. Didn't this guy ever go to school? Don't you know this is an exaggerated metaphor? Isn't there a great 9-year compulsory education in this novel world? Lee Baiken listened to the explosive voice and continued to say in a casual tone, "What do you mean by looking at me like this? Don't you know that I am a more rigorous person?" Sunian could hardly hold on to his smile. Strict, rigorous asshole, a grown man cares so much, what a licker. She secretly took a breath, calmed down her mood, and said without conscience, "How could it be? How could I not know, Baiken? You have such a rigorous temperament, and it is for this reason that I like you, no matter what you do, rigorous and completely different from other men. So please be careful when you speak in the future. Other men are not as stupid as you." Looking at Sunian like this, Lee Baiken remembered something he heard somewhere. "I just like the way you look at me, but you can't kill me. Don't tell me, this feeling is really not that good." Sunian rolled his eyes. She felt that she couldn't make this guy feel so comfortable. Immediately, he cleared his throat and said in a delicate tone, "By the way, Baiken, are your feet okay? Aren't you looking for trouble with me? Then I will your heart." "Baiken, I know I shouldn't say it, but you are really too kind to Lan Mi, and Lan Min doesn't know what's appropriate. If she knew how to measure, she wouldn't step on your feet." When Sunian said this, he sighed deliberately. "Tell me, how hard does it take for your foot to step like this?" While Sunian was talking, Lee Baiken sat at the desk next to him. "Pick up the file at random." Sunian saw him like this and understood that he wanted to ignore her. It seems that this licking dog still has some conscience. If it were before, he would definitely yell back at me directly. It seems that my injury was really not in vain. Maybe it's because Lan Zhen doesn't feel sorry for you, Baiken, as much as I do. Baiken, I think no matter how good you are to Lan Min, the most important thing is yourself. If something happens to you, Dad and I will feel uncomfortable." Sunian said this for a long time. "Speak to Sunian directly until your mouth becomes dry." Just when Sunian was about to find a topic to end, Lee Baiken suddenly spoke, "If you are thirsty, just drink this glass of water and continue talking." Sunian. Sunian looked at Lee Baiken like this and blinked. Why do I feel that this guy treats me like a fool? That's what Lee Baiken thought, so when he heard Sunian saying this in his heart, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The meaning is expressed very clearly. Sunian. Insulting. I can't say this anymore. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 84. Chapter 84. Except for that face, there is nothing good about it. Seeing Sunian burying herself under the quilt angrily, Lee Baiken was in a better mood. How could he not be able to deal with this woman? I immediately looked at the document in my hand. Now he has an idea. If Sunian really lived a lifetime, then he could use this to know some things and solve some things easily. The question now is how to get useful information from Sunian. Lee Baiken, who was thinking about things, slowly tapped the document with his fingers. Lee Baiken felt that he listened to so much nonsense from Sunian every day anyway, so why make good use of this? Lee Baiken recovered his thoughts. Sunian's confused thoughts appeared in his mind again. At first, Lee Baiken thought that he was used to Sunian's messy voices, but it turned out that he still underestimated Sunian, a woman. Hey, this man Lee Baiken has no advantages except his face. But the heroine is also very powerful. Why do you know him? No, he still has some advantages, that is, he was accurate and allowed me to get pregnant with Mo Bao in one night in my previous life. Also, if he was so pitiful. This is all a mess. How could he be like that? What does this woman Sunian think about every day? Lee Baikan stood up and was about to speak, but when he was about to speak, he realized what he should say. Do you want to tell Sunian that I can hear your thoughts and then settle the score with her? Obviously impossible. This situation really made Lee Baikan feel like he had something stuck in his throat. Sunian suddenly felt a chill running down his spine for some unknown reason. She couldn't help but turn around and saw Lee Baikan's gloomy eyes. This look makes me feel like you want to eat me. This licking dog, why is he so crazy? Lee Baikan felt that his head was about to explode, and he immediately pressed his hand between his eyebrows. Sunian is not stupid either. Of course she can see that Lee Baikan is uncomfortable now and understands that now is the time for her to show off. He immediately rolled up his sleeves, lifted up the quilt and got out of bed. Baikan, what's wrong with you? It seems to me that you have a headache. It doesn't matter. Do you want me to call the doctor in now? Just shut up, Lee Baikan said subconsciously. Sunian became uneasy after hearing this. What does it mean to just shut up? I obviously didn't speak just now. This dog licking is really getting more and more excessive. My breathing is wrong now. My vicious female supporting role is really pitiful. Lee Baikan. Now Lee Baikan really feels that he can't stay here any longer, not even for a moment. Immediately got up and walked outside. He needs to go out and get some fresh air. But as soon as he walked to the door, the ward door was opened and Lee Ji-eunhong came in from the outside. When Lee Ji-eunhong saw Lee Baikan walking outside, his face suddenly fell. Baikan, you are looking like this to go somewhere. Nian is like this. You don't even accompany Nian. Have you forgotten? What is the reason why Nian is admitted to the hospital? You just ignore it, but in this situation, you are going too far to abandon Nian. Lee Baikan, is this really too much? End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 85. Chapter 85, Nowhere to be found after wearing iron shoes. Sunian was startled by the sudden appearance of the old man. But as a person who had been reborn, Sunian reacted immediately and immediately put on an aggrieved expression. After changing his expression, Sunianze said very sensibly, Dad, you may have misunderstood. Baikan is not what you thought. Baikan just has some things to deal with. Ha ha ha, didn't you tell me to shut up? The old man scolds me so badly now, and I deserve it? Lee Baikan turned around and saw Sunian looking weak. He felt that he had to find a way to let the old man see the truest side of this woman. He would like to know, if that time really comes, how will the old man feel about this Sunian? After Lee Ji-eunhong saw Sunian like this, he immediately walked up to Sunian with a distressed look on his face. Nian, how can you be so sensible? It's because of your temper that you always suffer. After saying this, Lee Ji-eunhong looked at Lee Baikan again. From today on, you will stay by Nian's side. If Nian's health is not good for one day, you will not return to the company for one day. When Lee Ji-eunhong spoke, there was an air of calmness and authority. But Lee Baikan didn't show any fear, and calmly returned to his desk. Lee Ji-eunhong became even more angry when he saw Lee Baikan like this. Lee Baikan, what do you mean? Do you have me as your father in your heart? Sunian knew immediately that it was time for him to show off. Dad, don't get excited. I'm such a big man, I don't need such a big battle at all. I can take good care of myself. Please don't stay here with this bastard, it will affect my time to watch the drama. As a vicious female supporting role, her life is really not as miserable as usual. She is already like this, and she still has to go through the so-called plot. The more Lee Ji-eunhong saw Sunian's sensible appearance, the more distressed he became. But at this moment, Lee Baikan's calm voice sounded, okay, I won't care about the current affairs of the company, and I won't get involved in the recent bidding project. Dad, just follow up on your own, if you think it's okay. If so, then I will arrange for someone to deliver all the documents to you immediately, and I can complete the handover work with you in the shortest possible time. Li Jianhong. Li Baikan glanced at the old man lightly, and knew the answer from the old man's face. After all, changing the coach before the battle is a big taboo. However, Sunian next to him felt very uncomfortable when he saw the triumphant expression of such a villain like Li Baikan. I can't stand this bastard, and I can't bear to see him being so arrogant, nor can I bear to see the old man being so weak. Let me think about how I should remind the old man of something. Li Baikan was startled when he heard this voice. It seems that some things are really like, you can't find anything even if you wear iron shoes, and it doesn't take any effort to get it. Originally, he was thinking about how to get words out of Sunian's mouth, but now that he had the chance, he delivered it to his door. Let me think about it carefully and think about where I can help the old man now. It seems that the price of building materials was going to increase in the past life. This impact is quite big. Li Baikan raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this, and then said, by the way, Dad, I thought of one thing. There seems to be some buzz recently that the price of building materials seems to be going up. This matter is troublesome enough. You are more experienced than me, so you can handle it better at this time. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 86. Chapter 86. Author, please write the script for me. Sunian's pupils dilated slightly. This will happen a few months later. How does he know? Does this guy have this ability? Has he got the news now? It is the Feng Group, a leading company in the construction industry, that has internal problems. I recently got news that there seems to be some problem with the Feng family. Dad, you also know that we have a strong emphasis on real estate. I was also struggling before. How can I get through this situation safely? Isn't this just right? You took over, I believe you can handle it better than me. These words completely surprised Sunian. Li Baikan actually knows this. Is it possible that Li Baikan was also reborn? Do you know the plot behind it? No, according to Li Baikan's current behavior, it doesn't look like it at all. It seems that Li Baikan, the domineering president, is really not for nothing, with such a powerful relationship. But no matter how powerful Li Baikan was, there was no way he could know that it was MRS Feng's brother who was responsible for corruption. If he knew about this, I would stand on my head and eat shit. Li Baikan looked at Sunian, and then gave her a meaningful smile. When Sunian saw Li Baikan's smile, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. Then she looked at Li Baikan and said word by word, according to reliable information, it seems that MRS Feng's brother enriched himself. Dad, you should also know how much MRS Feng values her brother. Sunian. Li Baikan was in a very good mood under Sunian's sight. Although Li Jianhong dotes on Sunian, he still has a sense of proportion when it comes to such important matters. He can only look at Sunian with a guilty face. Nian, I can only wrong you. Sunian, who was a little confused now, didn't react at all. This made Li Jianhong feel even more distressed when he saw Sunian like this. Nian, don't worry, Dad will definitely not let you suffer in vain, and Dad will definitely compensate you well. Sunian's eyes immediately lit up. Not only do you not have to stay with this bitch, but you also get compensation. How good is that? But Sunian's happiness didn't last long before it was extinguished by Li Baikan's words. Dad, what do you mean? Didn't I accompany Sunian according to your wishes? Li Jianhong's expression changed. He also knew that his son could not save face for him, so he could only say, okay, What I said before was because I was careless and didn't realize that you are now with such an important matter at hand, you should focus on the company's affairs. But even though he said this, Li Jianhong still couldn't help but said, but what I said before is right. Nian Nian became like this because of you. I can say that I will never find another and a stupid person like Nian Nian. Su Nian admitted this. Even if it weren't for the plot, maybe there wouldn't be anyone else in this world who would do something like this just for a stupid thing like me. I never said that we couldn't balance the company and Su Nian. This made both Su Nian and Li Jianhong stunned. Li Baikan looked at them and continued, I can take good care of Su Nian and the company. If you need to tell me what I should do, I will do it. Li Jianhong, my son is enlightened. Su Nian, what kind of airplane is this licking dog doing? What's the plot now? Author, please give me the script. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 87. Chapter 87. No sense of public morality at all. As a father, how could Li Jianhong be unhappy seeing his son being so responsible? I laughed immediately. Okay, you are worthy of being my son. Yes, a mature man should balance career and family. I am really proud of you, Dad. Li Jianhong's smile at this moment can really be said to be unbearable. Li Baikan ignored him and looked at the other person in the ward. Su Nian, what do you think? Before Su Nian could speak, Li Jianhong spoke on her behalf. Nian Nian, are you very happy now? Let me just tell you. Baikan, how could you not like a woman as good as our Nian Nian? Of course I'm happy, I'm really happy. I am really happy now. Li Baikan was very happy. After seeing off the old man, Li Baikan quickly called Josu and asked him to check what Su Nian said. The results will be available soon. Li Baikan held the document and listened to Josu's report. Mr. Li, it is indeed as you said. Mrs. Feng's brother does have problems and behaves very boldly. He directly told the suppliers below that he is completely in charge of this aspect of the Feng family. As long as he pleases him, then you can get the contract. It is also for this reason that the suppliers below are spending money one after another. Li Baikan looked at the document calmly. Su Nian is right. It seems that he has the right idea. Being able to hear Su Nian's thoughts seems to be useful, but at this moment, Li Baikan remembered what Su Nian said, he is short and thin. He clearly. Josu, who was reporting, suddenly felt that the temperature around him suddenly dropped a lot, which even made Josu couldn't help but sneeze. After sneezing, Josu immediately stood up straight. Keep checking, this is a valuable clue. Josu naturally understood this. The Li Group has invested a lot of resources in the real estate project, and building materials are related to the lifeblood of the real estate industry. If they can really seize this opportunity, they may be able to develop better. Li Baikan then gave Josu some instructions before letting him go. After Josu left, Li Baikan did not return to the ward immediately. Instead, he stood there and pondered. Think about how to stop that woman from thinking so wildly. Those things she was thinking about. It's really embarrassing. But after thinking about it for a long time, Li Baikan didn't come up with any good ideas. After all, even if he told Su Nian, I can hear what you are thinking, so don't think about it in the future, it would be useless. After all, this thought cannot be controlled no matter what. But Su Nian's messy thoughts really made him embarrassed. Due to being upset, Li Baikan couldn't help but take out a few cigarettes from his body. But even after Li Baikan finished smoking, he still didn't figure out the reason. In the end, Li Baikan couldn't help but smile lightly and put out the cigarette butt. I returned to the ward smelling of cigarette smoke. Su Nian frowned immediately when he smelled the smell of Li Baikan's smoke. How many cigarettes has this guy smoked? he has such a strong smell and misses the heroin so much, then why don't he go find someone and appear in front of me with such a strong smell of cigarettes? If you don't know, then why don't you? I thought this guy was smoking bacon. No sense of public morality at all. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 88. Chapter 88. It's okay, I have a long life, I don't care about these few days. Sunian stared at Lee Baiken. Such a strong smell of cigarette smoke. I wonder how many cigarettes this guy has smoked. This heroine hasn't appeared for a long time and she is so desperate. She is really hopeless. Lee Baiken. He walked to the desk and sat down. He felt that he had to learn to ignore Sunian's messy thoughts. Maybe this is also a kind of experience for him. Sunian thought of another thing. By the way, when giving birth, if the man smokes too much, it will affect the seeds, and what should I do if it affects Mo Bao's health? I just hope that his role is to provide me with a seed so that I can get hurt. If this guy's seed doesn't work, then I will suffer a loss. No, I have to find a way to ensure that Lee Baiken's seed is fine. Lee Baiken couldn't stand the document anymore. He took a deep breath and stabilized his emotions. But then he heard Sunian thinking about how to improve the quality of the seeds. He listened for 3 minutes, and finally couldn't listen anymore, and immediately slammed the document on the table. The huge sound startled Sunian. She looked at Lee Baiken doubtfully. Unexpectedly, he happened to catch Lee Baiken's eyes. But for some reason, Sunian felt that Lee Baiken's eyes were a little strange. What's going on with this guy's eyes? Why does he feel resentful? But who cares, just take advantage of this opportunity, I have a good impression. Sunian immediately cleared his throat. Baiken, what's wrong? Did something happen to you at work? If you don't mind, you can tell me. Although I don't understand anything, I can be a quiet listener for you. After saying that, he walked towards Lee Baiken with an obedient expression. When Lee Baiken heard this, he subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. She finally stopped talking about those messy things. Baiken, I know you are very serious about your work, but some things cannot be solved in a hurry. You still have to be patient when dealing with some things. If you really feel upset, you can go out to relax and change your mood a little. Maybe in this case, you might have new ideas. Looking at the instigator in front of him, it was strange that Lee Baiken was in a good mood. Really, Lee Baiken gritted his teeth and spit out these 2 words. Sunian nodded, yes, but after finishing speaking, he deliberately coughed a few times. Lee Baiken, who knew what this woman wanted to do, looked at her with half-smiling eyes, and followed Sunian's intention and asked, why do you cough suddenly? When Sunian heard this, he did not answer immediately, but coughed heavily again before speaking. Baiken, why are you like this and why do you smoke so many cigarettes? Don't you know that smoking is harmful to your health? Harmful to health? Sunian nodded solemnly. As long as you let me give birth to Mo Bao, you can do whatever you want. I won't care about you, you bastard, until the baby is born, huh? Lee Baiken stretched out his hand to pull the person closer and asked, knowingly, you don't like me smoking? These words made Sunian feel hesitant in his heart. You must know that her character setting is that no matter what Lee Baiken does, she likes it. No, I just care about your health, Baiken. You may not know that if you smoke a cigarette, you will lose a few days of your life. After Sunian said this, a smile appeared on Lee Baiken's lips, and then he put it next to Sunian's ear and said in a low voice, it doesn't matter, I have a long life, I don't care about these few days. Thank you all for your support yesterday. I am really happy. Tomorrow is Monday. Please continue to vote. If you don't like the trouble of voting, just give it a 5-star review. Thank you very much. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 89. Chapter 89, You have a long life, you have a long life. Hearing this, Sunian really felt as if many draft horses were flying above his head. Your life is long, your life is long, you will die in a while. It's still long-lived, but your setting is short-lived. Under Sunian's crazy gaze, Lee Baiken continued, What's wrong? Why are you looking like this? Don't you think I have a long life, or you don't want me to live a long life at all? Why do you love me so much? Do you love me as a person or as someone else? Lee Baiken felt that he had been angry with Sunian's messy thoughts for so long. How could he make this woman feel better? How is it possible, Baiken? Why do you miss me so much? How could I think that your life is short? Sunian could only continue without conscience. No, I said the wrong thing. When I saw Baiken, you look like a person who will live a long life, be rich and wealthy, and you may not know that I pray to the gods whenever I have free time, hoping that no disaster will happen to me. Ah, is it okay if I speak without conscience? Long-lived, 100 years old, but it looks short-lived at first glance. He also loves me. If this licking dog doesn't have some money, then the whole person has no so-called advantages at all. The whole person is arrogant, and I need to use it. Love anything else about this guy, anyway, after he dies, the last things are mine. Lee Baiken had such a big reaction when he saw Sunian speaking without conscience. Since this is the case, then, of course we must continue to let this woman speak without conscience. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on the corner of Lee Baiken's mouth. It seems like, he figured out how to deal with this woman. You really think so? Sunian nodded crazily, trying to get over this. Then make an oath to me now. Sunian. I'm going to die. What's wrong with this guy? Why didn't I know in my previous life that the male partner will become perverted if he doesn't see the female partner for a long time? Just because I said a few words, let me swear that there is nothing wrong with him. The more Sunian behaves like this, the more Lee Baiken wants her to say this oath, saying it without conscience. Why don't you say it? Is it true that I was right? You are just coaxing me. I don't know what to say. Sunian smiled sarcastically, trying to break free from Lee Baiken's restraints. But the smile on Lee Baiken's face became deeper and deeper. No, fine, I'll teach you, you just need to tell me. Then Lee Baiken said word for word, I, Sunian, swear that I feel in my heart that Lee Baiken will live a long life and be rich and powerful. If it is a lie. Before Lee Baiken finished speaking, a warm lip pressed against him. The kissing technique was clumsy, unfamiliar, and even a little panicky. At this moment, Lee Baiken was teasing and never thought that Sunian would be like this, so he never thought of taking precautions. When Lee Baiken felt the sweetness of her lips, he actually wanted to deepen the kiss. But in this charming situation, Sunian's voice appeared in his mind again. Hey, I didn't brush my teeth this morning, just to make this guy sick. If you ask me to swear, I guess it will come from the mouth of this black-hearted licking dog. Lee Baiken. At this time, Lee Baiken is considered a ghost if he can have such charming thoughts. This woman. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 90. Chapter 90 Swear. Lee Baiken pushed her away with a dark face. Baiken, I won't swear, because there are gods above my head. If I swear randomly, it will be bad for you. Sunian put on a wry smile before Lee Baiken spoke. Maybe you think I'm making excuses, I have a clear conscience. Sunian turned around and left immediately after saying this. The moment she turned around, she immediately breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. The reason why he didn't swear was that Sunian really didn't dare to swear. Because Sunian was really afraid that there would be gods 3 feet above his head. It was magical enough that she traveled through the book, and was reborn in the end. Although she didn't know what caused this, Sunian was really scared. Whoever likes to swear, then swear, there are gods with 3 feet above your head. What if I swear randomly and God cannot stand it, or whatever, it affects the birth of Mo. These words immediately made Li Baikan look at Sunian. Watching Sunian climb onto the bed. The worst thing I can do is to be ridiculed by this licking dog, but I won't lose a piece of meat. As long as my calligraphy treasure doesn't have any accidents, I'll be fine. Originally Li Baikan just wanted to tease Sunian and make her anxious, but he didn't expect Sunian to behave like this. For a time, he felt a lot of guilt in his heart. He could only look at Sunian's back, and finally decided to get up and apologize to Sunian. However, when he got closer, he found that Sunian had fallen asleep. The time soon arrived at night. When Li Baikan finished processing the last document of the day, he put his eyes on the bed. Still awake? Why did you sleep for so long today? Moreover, you can't hear Sunian's voice. Could it be that you really went too far? Making her feel so uncomfortable? Then Li Baikan got up and walked towards the bed. But before Li Baikan could reach Sunian's bed, the ward door opened. Baikan, how could you be injured? Why didn't you tell me after you were injured? Li Baikan's expression changed when he heard this voice. This voice is not Lan Min's, who else could it be? Li Baikan immediately quickened his pace and wanted to rush to Sunian's side. After all, he had made Sunian unhappy today. He really didn't want to be controlled by the so-called plot and then hurt Sunian again. But in fact, Li Baikan had a good idea. When he almost ran to Sunian's bed, Lan Min suddenly jumped in front of him and grabbed his hand. Baikan, after I knew you were injured, I was really worried. This is the soup I made for you. Li Baikan lost the initiative of his body again. Even though he lost the initiative, he still looked at Sunian through a very few eyes. He now hopes that Sunian can continue to sleep. Don't wake up. Li Baikan felt that no matter how shameless this plot was, it would not be able to disturb people who were still sleeping. When Li Baikan first thought of this, the long-lost voice of Sunian appeared in his mind. You are a dog licker, aren't you forcing me to swear? If I don't make you pay the price, my name will not be Sunian. Li Baikan. What did this woman do again? Li Baikan now has many ominous premonitions, which are very strong, super strong. Hey, he would never have imagined that I sent the heroine a WeChat message on purpose, telling her that he was injured, and that he wanted to eat stewed pig trotters, without adding any ingredients such as oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, stewed directly, with blood and water, the original flavor of the soup of look at how strong this dog-licking male lead's stomach is. End of this chapter.